The rain was coming down so hard I could barely see, and there I was, standing on the side of the road, drenched, shivering, and completely alone. My husband had just driven off, laughing, telling me this was to teach me a lesson. But what he didn't know was that this night would change everything, because the man who came to rescue me wasn't just a bodyguard. He was the beginning of my freedom and my revenge. If you've ever been underestimated, controlled, or treated like you were worthless, hit that like button right now. Subscribe for more stories where justice is finally served. And buckle up, because Alecia's story isn't just about betrayal, it's about finding power where you least expect it. My name is Alecia. That's how I'd start if I ever had to introduce myself to strangers. But if you'd asked me a few years ago to describe who I was, I probably would have said, I'm Garrett's wife. That's how much of myself I'd lost. When I first met Garrett, he was everything a girl is taught to dream about. Handsome, confident, wealthy, with a magnetic smile that made even the air around him feel charged. My friends envied me. My parents said I'd struck gold. And for a while, I believed them. I believed him. At the beginning, Garrett was charming in ways that seemed old-fashioned and romantic. He opened doors, paid for everything, sent flowers to my office. He seemed protective, devoted, and I felt special. I thought, this is what it means to be cherished. But there's a dangerous thing about charm, it can be a mask. And Garrett wore his mask so well, I didn't realize how tightly it was tied until it started choking me. It began so small I almost didn't notice. One night, as we were getting ready for dinner, I slipped on a blue dress. Garrett's smile faltered. You know, he said casually, that color doesn't really flatter you. Why don't you wear the red one instead? The one I bought you. It sounded sweet, like he cared. So I changed. Later, it was my phone. Why do you need a password? He asked, laughing as if it were a joke. What secrets are you hiding from me, babe? He said it while pulling the phone from my hand, scrolling through messages that were nothing but work emails and family chats. At first, I laughed along. He was just being silly, right? But inside, something unsettled me. Soon, the suggestions became rules. Don't wear that skirt, it's too short. Your friend Jessica. She's a bad influence. Don't see her anymore. Why do you need to visit your parents so often? We're building our own life now. I told myself it was love. That he was just protective. That compromise was part of marriage. But slowly, I was shrinking. Then came the finances. When we married, Garrett insisted we combine everything. One household, one account, he said. I'll handle the money, it's less stressful for you. At first, it sounded practical. I had a good job, but Garrett's income was far greater, so I thought maybe he knew best. But soon, my paychecks went directly into his account. My debit card was linked to him. If I needed gas, I had to ask. If I wanted to buy a new book, I had to justify it. I remember one afternoon standing in the grocery store aisle with a cart of food. My card declined. I called Garrett, humiliated. He chuckled and said, "Guess you shouldn't spend without asking me first. You'll learn." Learn what? That I wasn't trusted with my own money. That I wasn't allowed independence. But I swallowed it, like I swallowed everything else. The isolation was next. Every time I tried to make plans, Garrett found a way to stop me. He complained that I cared more about my friends than him. That my family drained me. Eventually, it was easier to just stay home. Easier to let the invitations fade. My world shrank down to him, and only him. But here's the thing, abuse doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. It convinces you that you're overreacting, that you're lucky, that others have it worse. Garrett never hit me. He didn't have to. His words, his control, his constant surveillance, that was enough to make me feel like a prisoner in my own life. There were warning signs, cracks in the perfect illusion, but I ignored them because facing the truth meant admitting the life I'd built was a lie. I remember one night in particular. We were at a dinner party with his colleagues. Someone asked me a harmless question about my work, and I answered enthusiastically. Garrett squeezed my thigh under the table, Hard. His smile never wavered, but his nails dug into my skin as he whispered, "Don't talk so much. You sound desperate." My face burned with shame. I laughed weakly, pretending I was fine, while the table clinked glasses and chatted on. Later, in the car, I tried to defend myself. I was just answering a question. He sneered. "You embarrassed me. Don't do it again." And that was the end of it. My words died before they could leave my throat. That was my reality, every day, every week. To the outside world, Garrett was the picture of success and charm. To me, he was a warden, keeping me locked in with invisible bars. And the worst part? I blamed myself. I told myself I wasn't strong enough, wasn't patient enough, wasn't grateful enough. I thought maybe if I tried harder, loved better, obeyed faster, things would go back to the way they were at the start. But the truth is, there's no going back once someone shows you who they are. Garrett didn't want a partner. He wanted possession. Looking back, I can see how carefully he constructed the illusion. How he chipped away at my independence until I was too tired to fight. How he convinced me that what he called love was normal, that everyone argued, that every husband set rules. But deep down, in the quiet moments when I stared at myself in the mirror, I barely recognized the woman looking back. Her eyes were dull. Her shoulders slumped. Her smile was practiced, not real. And the scariest thought was this: maybe this is my life now. Maybe this is all I deserve. That's where I was when the breaking point came. I didn't see it coming. I didn't plan for it. But one stormy night, Garrett's cruelty finally stripped away every excuse I had left. And that moment, standing in the rain, alone, 25 miles from home, wouldn't just break me. It would set me free. The night everything changed started like any other. Dinner reservations. Small talk that felt more like a performance than a conversation. Garrett was in one of his moods, the kind where every word I said seemed to annoy him. It was something so small that lit the fuse. The waiter asked if we'd like wine with our meal. I politely said, "No, thank you." Garrett's head snapped toward me like I'd just insulted him in public. His jaw clenched, but he forced a smile in front of the waiter. The silence on the drive home was heavier than the storm clouds gathering outside. I stared out the window, raindrops beginning to blur the city lights. My chest tightened. I knew that silence. It was the silence that always came before the punishment. Halfway down a deserted stretch of road, Garrett suddenly pulled the car over. The rain had started to pound against the windshield, rhythmic and relentless. He turned toward me, eyes cold. "You think you can just embarrass me like that?" he hissed. I blinked, confused. "Embarrass you? I just said I didn't want wine." "Get out." I thought I misheard him. "What?" His voice was steady, like ice. "Get out." A nervous laugh slipped from my lips. "Garrett, it's pouring." He shoved my purse into my lap, unlocked the door, and leaned closer until I could smell the bitterness of alcohol on his breath. "Maybe a long walk will remind you who's in charge here. Consider it a lesson." And then, before I could beg or argue, he leaned back and hit the gas. The car fishtailed slightly on the wet asphalt, headlights shrinking into the darkness until there was nothing left but rain and silence. I stood there on the side of the road, soaked within seconds. The water was freezing, drenching my hair, plastering my clothes to my skin. My shoes squelched in the mud, useless. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it over the roar of the storm. 25 miles from home. No umbrella. No jacket. Just me, and the echo of Garrett's laughter still ringing in my ears. I hugged my arms around myself, teeth chattering. My mind spun with disbelief. He left me. He actually left me. And then came the voice. That small, steady voice inside me that I'd ignored for years. This isn't love. This isn't marriage. This is cruelty. For the first time, I didn't push that voice away. I let it in. My phone buzzed weakly in my purse. Battery at 3%. My hands trembled as I pulled it out, screen streaked with raindrops. Who could I call? My parents. Too far. Friends. Garrett had chased them all away. There was only one name I dared to press. Kyle. As the line connected, my voice cracked. Kyle. I need help. And in that moment, drenched and abandoned on the side of the road, I realized something. Garrett hadn't taught me a lesson. He had taught me the truth, that I was done being powerless. The phone rang only once before Kyle's voice came through, steady and alert. Alecia. What's wrong? Where are you? Hearing his voice was like gripping onto solid ground while drowning. I stammered through tears, the rain splashing against the phone. Garrett, he left me. I'm on Route 46. It's pouring, Stay where you are, Kyle interrupted, firm but calm. I'm coming. Don't move. I'll find you. The line went dead before I could respond, my battery finally giving up. Panic flickered, but it was soothed by something I hadn't felt in a long time, trust. 30 minutes in the storm feels like 30 years. I wrapped my arms tighter around myself, shivering, my hair clinging to my face. Cars whizzed by occasionally, their headlights blinding, but no one stopped. To them, I was just a shadow in the rain. Then, finally, headlights slowed. A black SUV pulled over onto the shoulder, cutting through the darkness like a beacon. My heart raced. The door opened, and there he was, Kyle. He wasn't in a suit tonight, no polished security presence. Just jeans, a jacket, and that unwavering steadiness he carried everywhere. Without hesitation, he shrugged off his jacket and draped it over my shoulders, shielding me from the downpour. Let's get you out of this, he said softly, holding an umbrella over both of us as he guided me to the car. The contrast was so jarring it nearly broke me. Garrett had left me to shiver in the storm. Kyle showed up without question, without judgment, without anger, just concern. And in that moment, soaked and trembling in his jacket, I realized I'd been starving for that kind of care. The warmth of the SUV heater felt like heaven as the rain pounded outside. My teeth still chattered, but Kyle didn't press me with questions. He simply adjusted the heat, placed a towel from the back seat into my hands, and drove. Finally, he spoke. Alecia, does this happen often? His eyes flicked toward me, cautious but gentle. I swallowed hard, throat raw. Not like this. But, yeah. He likes to remind me I'm nothing without him. My voice cracked on the last words. Kyle's grip on the steering wheel tightened, but his voice remained calm. You're not nothing. Don't let him convince you of that. Something about the certainty in his tone hit me harder than the rain had. It wasn't pity. It was conviction. The rest of the drive was quiet, but not the suffocating silence Garrett always wielded like a weapon. This silence felt safe. When he dropped me at home, Kyle didn't linger, didn't pry. He just said, if you ever need me again, day or night, you call. Understood. I nodded, clutching his jacket tighter around me. And as I stepped into the house Garrett and I shared, I realized something vital. I wasn't alone anymore. Kyle hadn't just rescued me from the rain that night. He'd rescued me from the lie that Garrett's control was unbreakable. The morning after the storm, Garrett acted like nothing had happened. He sipped his coffee, scrolling through his phone, smirking at me over the rim of his mug. Well, he asked casually, did you learn your lesson? His words cut deeper than the rain ever could. A chill ran down my spine, but I forced myself to nod, pretending to be the obedient wife he thought I was. Inside, though, something had shifted. The storm hadn't just drenched me, it had washed away the last of my denial. For the first time, I saw him clearly. Not as a protector. Not as a husband. But as a jailer who'd locked me in a cage I hadn't realized I was living in. And I wasn't going to stay there. Kyle's rescue had lit something inside me. He didn't lecture, didn't pressure. He simply reminded me, with his actions, not his words, that I deserved basic respect. That realization burned in me like a hidden fire. So I started small. I kept my head down at home, but in secret, I began preparing. I opened a hidden bank account. I used the excuse of errands to visit the branch, depositing small amounts of cash whenever I could. At night, I backed up my phone, saving Garrett's cruel texts and voice messages. I documented everything: his insults, his restrictions, his manipulations. Every piece of evidence was like a brick in the foundation of my escape. Kyle helped quietly, never overstepping. He taught me how to secure my phone, how to use encrypted apps, how to protect my digital trail from Garrett's constant monitoring. His calm presence steadied me when fear threatened to pull me back under. Meanwhile, Garrett strutted through life, convinced I was still his. He mocked me at breakfast, dismissed me at dinner, bragged about his control. He had no idea I was already slipping from his grasp. And the irony: the more he thought he was winning, the more I was planning. For weeks, I lived a double life: the submissive wife in front of Garrett, and the quietly determined woman behind the scenes. And with every step I took, the cage door opened wider. He thought I was broken. But in truth, I was awakening. The night of Garrett's corporate event was supposed to be his victory lap. He strutted into the grand ballroom in a tailored suit, expecting applause, admiration, and control, just like always. But this time, things were different. I had spent weeks preparing. Quietly, carefully, I had shared my evidence with the board. The financial manipulation, the threats, the abusive messages. They didn't see a charming executive anymore. They saw a liability, a man whose mask was about to crack in front of everyone. As the speeches began, Garrett smirked at me from across the room, oblivious. I stood near the board members, heart pounding, adrenaline rushing like a tidal wave. When the chairman cleared his throat and announced that certain serious concerns had been raised about Garrett's conduct, I saw his face falter for the first time. "What?" he barked, laughing nervously. "This is ridiculous. Who would even say that?" That's when I stepped forward. My voice didn't shake. I did. The room fell silent. Garrett's eyes widened, rage barely contained. He opened his mouth to attack, but before he could, Kyle was at my side, calm and solid, his security badge flashing. The board laid out the evidence, his texts projected on a screen, his financial misuse exposed, his threats undeniable. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Garrett's confidence shattered with every word. He tried to laugh it off, to charm his way back. But the more he protested, the guiltier he looked. His voice grew desperate, his face red, his hands shaking. And when Kyle placed a firm hand on his shoulder to escort him out, Garrett looked at me like he couldn't believe this was happening. For years, he had taught me lessons in cruelty. But now, in front of his colleagues, his mask was ripped away. This was my lesson for him. You can't break someone who has already decided to rise. That night, Garrett lost his career, his reputation, and his grip on me. And me. I gained something priceless: my freedom. I walked out of that ballroom with my head high, Kyle by my side, and for the first time in years, I felt light. Garrett thought I was weak. But my revenge was simple: proving him wrong by finally living strong. Garrett's downfall didn't explode in a single moment. It unraveled piece by piece, right in front of the very people he'd spent years trying to impress. As the evidence flashed across the ballroom screen, the room filled with whispers, shocked gasps, and sharp intakes of breath. Garrett, the man who thrived on controlling others, suddenly had no control at all. I stood there, no longer the silent, obedient wife he thought he owned. My voice was steady, my eyes unflinching. For years, he'd looked at me like I was beneath him. That night, he looked at me like I was untouchable. The board didn't hesitate. His contract was suspended on the spot. His access revoked. And when Kyle placed a firm hand on his arm, guiding him toward the exit, Garrett's composure shattered completely. "You'll regret this," he shouted, his face red with fury. "You're nothing without me, Alecia. Nothing." But his words bounced off me like raindrops on glass. I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. Instead, I smiled, a quiet, powerful smile that told him exactly what I had finally realized. I was never nothing. I had been everything he feared: strong, resilient, and capable of breaking free. For Garrett, the humiliation was unbearable. To lose not only his position but the image he'd carefully built, it was the one punishment he never saw coming. And for me, the victory wasn't in watching him crumble, though I won't lie, that was satisfying. The real triumph was the weight that lifted off my chest as he was escorted out. The invisible chains I'd carried for years. Gone. I walked out of that ballroom lighter, freer, and alive in a way I hadn't felt in so long. Kyle walked beside me, steady as ever, but he didn't need to say a word. He knew. I knew. The revenge wasn't about destroying Garrett's life, it was about reclaiming mine. That was the sweetest part of all. Garrett thought he'd taught me a lesson by leaving me in the rain. But the real lesson was his to learn. You can't break someone who refuses to stay broken. And you can't control someone who has finally remembered her worth. Sometimes revenge isn't about tearing someone else down. It's about standing up, reclaiming your power, and walking away stronger than before. Garrett thought control was power, but real power. It's knowing your worth, setting yourself free, and never letting anyone convince you that you're less than you are. Outro call to action, 20 seconds. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button and share your thoughts in the comments. What's the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed? Don't forget to subscribe, because we've got more stories where justice finds the people who think they'll never face it. Until next time, stay strong.